I'm so excited to release this latest blend, Sacred Heart. It is a blend that I believe everyone needs at this moment in time. Over the last 2 to 3 years, humanity has undergone a massive purification. All of us have had to face difficult challenges, whether it's world events or personal challenges, childhood trauma, or all kinds of hidden buried things arising to the surface. And I think that at this point in time, we're all to this stage where we're willing to actually admit how hard it was. Sometimes with that admittance comes more emotion because we've been holding it all together and keeping ourselves stable and not just like completely breaking down. And sometimes we just need to break down, or we need to let some of those deeper emotions that have been tucked away process themselves out of our system so we're not carrying them. Okay, so let's get into the flowers. I think that's the fastest way to explain what's going on here. We're going to start with white columbine. This is a wildflower that looks like a white star. We collected it in the Grand Teton Mountains. It's for when you have inner conflict and you're wrestling back and forth between something. Is this good for me? Is this bad for me? Am I doing good? Am I doing bad? Is this right? Is this wrong? Black, white. And we get stuck in these polar opposites and extremes where we're just swinging back and forth like a pendulum. White columbine helps us find that middle ground and find our peace. And it's like the fairy godmother. It's like you get that sensation when you just kind of crawl into your mom's lap or crawl into your best friend's lap, and you just know that everything's gonna be okay. There is this tremendous sense of self-support that arises from within you to take care of you.
The past 2 years have been really difficult, and so I noticed that there was a lot of sadness and a lot of grief that was coming up. And what was surprising to me was just how much on a cellular level that I was holding was kind of all coming up to the surface, like being unraveled. Usually when I go through any moments of emotional intensity, my typical response is feel or think like, oh my gosh, I want to get out of this. How can I make myself feel better? What I noticed was I wanted to lean into the discomfort. I allowed myself the space to acknowledge and meet and embrace all that was arising. There was no desire to fix anything or change anything. I just allowed myself to meet myself where I was at.
Sacred Datura. This is a wildflower that grows here in Arizona in the desert. It is for transmutation, transformation. It's for cleansing the body of anything that's stuck, of any toxicities. It's kind of like a spring cleaning. It's also the dark night of the soul flower. So the moment you hit the bottom of the barrel where you just completely have to drop everything and surrender and allow whatever needs to move through to move through. It's going to help bring in more ease. It's like moonlight. The feeling of moonlight is very soothing to the system, and it calms everything down so that you can be stable, even though you're going through this major transmutation process.
The moment I started taking Sacred Heart, it was just like, and it just felt like my heart kind of exploded. And all of a sudden I could feel to my core, all the things I was avoiding, all of the things that my heart was inviting me into expand, that maybe I wasn't ready for, but was ready to look at and ready to be vulnerable with. And as it's continued, it just feels like it's spreading through my entire body. It's like shedding a layer of skin.
Then we have Pieris. Pieris is for grief. A lot of people have been experiencing grief. They may have lost loved ones or been separated from loved ones, or just in general experience a deep chasm of sadness. Pieris is the #1 flower essence remedy that I go to if someone has lost a loved one and is grieving. And Pieris really brings in a sense of hope. It helps us be able to move with our grief versus become totally immobilized and hopeless. It gives us a sense of moving forward and being able to use our grief to infuse it into where we're going versus become stuck with it. The vanilla bog orchid is a tiny white orchid that we found in Iceland next to Godafoss, the waterfall. And it is for when you feel undervalued. And it helps you move into arenas where you know that people get who you are, that they understand the greatness of who you are versus not seeing you, not seeing what you're capable of. So it's a huge boost to your ability to embody the full force, to be reckoned with. who you are and who you are to be in this life, your full presence and true nature, and being able to surround yourself with people who understand that and value that and cherish that. Pear blossom. Pear blossom is when we feel like we don't belong. When we're like, do I belong in this group of friends? Do I belong in this group of colleagues? Do I belong in my family? Am I the black sheep? Do I fit in here? Where should I be living? Should I live in this city or that city or this country? Where the heck do I belong? Sometimes you just want to pull your hair out because suddenly maybe the people that you felt were your community aren't your community anymore. And so Pear Blossom really helps you root into a deep sense of foundation and stability and figure out exactly where you belong. And it could be on a more metaphysical, subtle sense, where you belong on earth, where you belong in your sense of spirituality, where you belong culturally as a support to help you feel overall in an environment that you belong.
The Sacred Heart, it's like experiencing all the heartbreak in your life that you ever can remember, and having it kind of bloom up in this really tender way. And it's like you are experiencing it. It is a little painful. You feel very delicate and exposed and naked, but it's sweet at the same time. It's like there's a strength in it that you realize, I can take care of myself. I do belong in this world, and it's really powerful.
White iris, indicated when we feel like there is something wrong with us, when we've done something wrong, when we're unlucky, flawed, dirty, impure, ultimately that something is just wrong with us. Instead of expecting the worst and kind of projecting that onto other people and feeling really uncomfortable in situations and interactions, we feel aligned with our most innate sense of purity. We understand what our pure intentions are, and we can operate from that place. That in fact, we can be more open to unexpected blessings, we can receive support, and we can fully embody the purity of who we are.
I noticed that I was able to push through setbacks or blocks or any kind of heartbreaks because I was willing to see what was waiting on the other side, what was arising, what else was available to me. That was a new experience in some situations.
Radiance orchid is the most divine smelling orchid that we collected in Costa Rica. It looks a bit like a white angel. This orchid, gosh, is for so many things, but I would say that the top thing that comes to mind is for loss and separation. And sometimes when we are separated from someone that we love, we conjure up a lot of resistance in our systems. Kind of like we break down or we crunch down because we're afraid of being abandoned. We're afraid of never seeing them again. We're afraid of feeling that loss. And so what it helps us do is really just like process and move through that sensation of loss so that we can actually get to the other side of it and understand that actually we're all inseparable and interconnected. And there is a part of us that is in connection with that person that we experience loss with. So it releases a ton of pressure and tension and resistance and helps us to feel more connected and interconnected with the people around us and those who we feel a sense of separation with.
It's very much about overcoming that sense of isolation and separation and coming back into life, into the continuity of life, the interconnectedness of life.
What I've witnessed in people recently is that our population is in a very different place than we were 2 to 3 years ago. We're much more willing to be open, curious, vulnerable, and to make space for what is arising, rather than not want to see it, want to run, want to avoid it, not want to really see it in somebody else. We're able to hold space. If we're grieving or someone we know is grieving, we can hold space and be there and be present and be with them without trying to fix it or solve it or soothe them or make it all better. We simply can just be present. Sacred Heart will help us really expand more into that and feel safe and free to do more and more of that and make that a regular mode of operation versus just simply being like an effect of the last few years and then we kind of go back into the grind. Sacred Heart really helps us solidify the sense that we have undergone a transmutation and a transformation, both collectively and individually, and it has changed us. Now it helps us soften and open to the next.